Hello, everyone. And, oh, we're going to get chairs. Awesome. All right, I would love to introduce the filmmaker, Kim Bartley, and another round of applause for that amazing film. So my first question is kind of a two-parter. It's what inspired the film, but also how much did you know about bareback horse riding prior to this film?
Nothing at all. That's actually how it came about. I was actually filming elsewhere on a different reservation on a different project, and I came across the Indian relay racing, and I was just, I mean, I think it's any photographer or filmmaker's dream in terms of visually, it's just so stunning. But it was all male riders, and I saw one girl race, and I went up and spoke to her and just thought it was incredible, especially because she was the only girl there. And she put me in touch then on Facebook with other female racers, and that's how I came across Charmaine. So it was all very serendipitous, really.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how did you convince Charmaine to do the film?
Well, we were in touch. We spoke on the phone from Ireland. We were in touch on Facebook originally, and then I happened to be over filming on another project that kind of got delayed. So I said try to come up and meet her in person, because we just clicked on the phone, and she had this idea. She felt she was born to make a movie. She always knew she was going to do something. So she wanted to meet, and we went up to Wyoming for 4 days. And literally on the first evening, there was a knock on the door at 4 a.m. Come hunting with us, bring your cameras. We had the cameras because we were on the other shoot. Had never intended to start anything, but she took control, and that was it. And then we filmed for 2.5 years.
Yes. Yeah. Well, before we ask a few more questions, if you have any questions at any time, you could definitely just walk up to the mics. My next question was, so the film clearly changed when you were filming it, like over the 2.5 years, because she had to move and all the other things that happened with her story. What were you envisioning when you first started the film, and did it completely change, or was it easy to just kind of follow her life as it went?
It might have been easy if I lived here. It was, I suppose, with every documentary, you start off with a plan, and it never pans out. It always changes along the way. And there were a lot of changes in this. I suppose the initial idea was that she was planning on getting back up on the horse and becoming a champion that summer. And then everything else happened along the way. So we just went with it. But it was challenging because I'd, literally be over here for a week, fly home, and 2 days after I landed in Ireland, she'd ring and go, "Oh, myself and Savannah have split up again." And you'd be like, "Could you not have done that 2 days ago when I was still with you?" And it just kept changing, but we came back and forth as many times as we could, and tried to fill in the gaps. It kept changing.
And then one of the things that I kind of really enjoyed about the film was kind of getting that love story in the middle of also like the story of her becoming a champion again. So what was that kind of like, because you kind of get to see this intimacy between the two of them that sometimes you don't really get to see in a documentary film. So I wanted to know what it was like doing that. And then on the flip side, you said you hadn't known about bareback horse racing until this. So what was it like shooting with horses? Two very different questions. But like first the love story, and then into like the logistics of shooting horses and doing essentially like sports photography, which must have been very different from shooting people in their everyday lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the love story was something I was just fascinated by them. I think it's probably a generational thing. I'm much happier behind the camera than in front of all of you here. But they just absolutely ignored me and carried on with their lives. So all those, ups and downs of relationships, particularly when you're that age, it was lovely to be able to capture that. And obviously, they're both now in new relationships, and I'm not sure I'd want to see some awful relationship from 10 years ago up on screen. But they're cool with it. They've moved on, and I actually think they kind of like seeing all that went on. So that was lovely, and I think they were very different people too. So Savannah kind of bounced up a lot when
Yes.
Charmaine tends to be very kind of level. And then in terms of the horses, I'm terrified of horses. I don't ride horses. I kind of cower when they come towards me, so it was difficult. I fell over a couple of times where I thought through the lens that the horse was right there. They were actually a bit further away, and I just went flying back onto the ground. Didn't injure myself, luckily. But so I got another camera person for 2 of the races to help out, who was a horse expert. So he was able to get shots that I wouldn't have been able to. But to be honest, I would have loved to have so much more racing, but because I shot the whole thing myself, other than those 2 days, it was just very difficult. So, you know, you really would love to shoot that as a sports doc with 6 or 8 cameras on the track, because the races only last about a minute. So, you know, you have to get it right the first time. So it was challenging, but it was great. It was such a rush.
Well, I wouldn't
being
have
on the
guessed you
track.
were scared of horses from the movie. So you masked that very well.
Thank you.
And
I
then-
haven't got any better either.
No, so you're not better with horses? This
No.
movie didn't make you like them? Understood.
Quite the opposite, actually.
Oh, no. And then I guess in terms of like filming on the reservation, when she was initially on the reservation, what was that experience like? Like, what sort of permissions did you need? How did you kind of, because you had mentioned actually earlier on that you were already on a different reservation shooting. So what is that experience like versus like shooting off a reservation, I guess?
Well, we had to present the idea for the documentary to, it's the only reservation with 2 tribes in the US. So they have a joint tribal committee. So we had myself and Charmaine went and addressed them. She gave she was incredible. She really explained why she wanted to make the film, and I was just there as an add-on, really. And they welcomed us in, and they've shown it on the reservation. Everyone's seen it. So there were no. I mean, once they made the decision to allow us to film, that was it. We never, you know, there was no one checking up on what we were doing or anything like that. Obviously, there are certain cultural sensitivities that people would make me aware of, you know, certain drum, I was going to say pieces of music, I don't know what the word would be, but if you're at a powwow, there might be some drumming sessions where they say, you know, we don't want you to film this, or you can't go inside a sweat or with a camera, that kind of thing. But, you know, you just always check beforehand and do what people ask you to do, and, you know, be respectful and just keep a low profile, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then I kind of wanted to know, so where is Charmaine currently racing? Are you still in contact with Charmaine, I guess?
Oh yeah, we speak every week. She's just started her dream to come out of the movie was to become a kind of a motivational speaker. So she gave her first, she did her first motivational speech last week.
Oh, nice.
So she's very happy with that and hoping to do more. And we're hoping to take the film to reservations across the US and schools, and for Charmaine to travel with it if we can make that happen. So yeah, she's good, and she's been working as a part of COVID testing on the reservation. So she has a job that didn't exist there before. So silver lining of COVID, I suppose, in a small way. Yeah, so she's good.
And then we are here, and we all took PCR tests, and COVID happened. So how did kind of navigating, because you finished the film before COVID, but you released it during the pandemic?
I finished the edit in the middle of it. The last trip, we actually got the last flight out of the US to Ireland before air travel to Ireland anyway closed down. So it was a real challenge. When I saw the date come up there, 2020, I kind of thought, oh my God, I can't believe the time that's passed. So we finished the edit in the middle of the first year of lockdown, and it's been, you know, a struggle because everything is so much slower. So it's kind of only coming out of its shell now, I guess. Yeah, which is much longer. I mean, films always take a long time, but this has been a particularly long one because of that. Yeah.
Nice. And then I guess, so you talked about how you want to bring the film to different reservations. Kind of what do you hope comes out of like the film being shown for different audiences?
Well, I think that it raises a number of issues that are probably difficult for people to talk about or address, whether that's Charmaine's experience of abuse as a child, which it's quite a patriarchal society still. I think she was extraordinary, the fact that she, went to court and at 14 by herself. And she hopes that her story might inspire other girls who might be going through something similar to, find someone to talk to and get out of the situation they're in if possible. And I think overall it's a story about resilience and a story about never giving up, and she just never gives up no matter what life throws at her. She keeps going. So I just would hope that it would offer inspiration, because it's a tough life, it's a beautiful, stunning place, but it's hard, it's harsh. The winters are really, really long. I know that applies to a lot of the US, more than where we come from, but in terms of not having safety nets and not having jobs and all of that. So I would hope that her story would inspire others and, keep going. Even when the going gets tough, keep at it.
And then a question that I really like to ask different filmmakers is, what's a moment in the filming process, or the filmmaking process, where you felt joy, or I'm sure there was many moments, but this, that you were on the right track, that this movie was a good fit for you?
I think, weirdly, I think I knew from the minute that we first made contact across the sea online. She just has a very special spirit and a great sense of humor, and herself and her whole family were so welcoming from the get-go, that it always felt right. And I think probably the most emotional moment for everyone was when Charity got back up on the horse, because I definitely did not think that was going to happen when we first met her. She improved steadily. She put so much work into getting better. So I think that was a real special moment.
I teared up, so.
So did Charmaine, and she's not someone who tears up easily, Yeah, it was incredible, and I think it gave the whole family a lift. Yeah.
And then, if there's no other questions here, I kind of wanted to know, what are you working on now? Are you working on a new project? Are you going somewhere else? Or
I'm actually working on a project about, I don't know if any of you remember Hotel Rwanda. The man who featured in that, who was the hotelier, is in prison in Rwanda at the moment. So I'm working with his family on a documentary about that, and various other bits and pieces. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your amazing film. Thank you everyone here for coming. The film is available online, so for all your friends who didn't get to see it here, they can definitely go see it online at Still at Athena through the 20th. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming out for the screening, and thank you again for your amazing film.
No, thank you, Frida, and thank you all, because I know how harsh the weather is out there today. And also coming back in to see films in person, it's just a joy, but it's also, it's a step that people have to take, and I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.